Jury selection is expected to wrap up today in the federal sex trafficking trial of Sean Combs.
Combs has pleaded not guilty to the 5 counts against him. Lawyers questioned dozens of prospective jurors over the past 2 days, trying to find a jury who could be unbiased and judge the case fairly. Opening statements are set for May 12th. The trial is expected to last for 2 months. Joining us now to talk about this is Areva Martin. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning.
So, Areva, give us an idea of what we've seen so far as jury selection. Have there been any things that you've noticed that have been red flags? Like, this is a pretty public guy. Trying to find 12 jurors who don't know anything about him or this case is going to be tough.
Yeah, Robin, that's probably not likely given all the publicity that this case has gotten. But the question for jurors is not whether they've seen some of the media reports or even the documentary, but whether they can put aside what they've seen and commit to following the facts and evidence that are presented during the trial. And more importantly, follow the law that the judge will advise them on once the evidence is presented. That's the big question for jurors. One of the things that's been interesting that I've noted coming out of the courtroom reports that a lot of jurors talk about medical appointments, talk about personal things going on in their lives, and typically they use those things to try to get out of jury service. Many of these jurors have said, yes, I have medical appointments, I have personal appointments, but I will work around those appointments in order to serve on this jury. So jurors seem to be more eager to serve in this case than perhaps what we see in a typical case that doesn't involve someone as high profile as Sean Diddy Combs.
The defense sounds to be something along the lines of these are all consenting adults. Your thoughts about that?
Yes, that's where we should expect to see the defense go in this case, to say that all of the incidents that are going to be presented to this jury by the prosecution involve adults who were well aware of what they were doing, consented to it, and that Diddy led what they describe as a swinger's life, that he did have consensual sex with multiple partners at various times, but that they were all consenting, that no one was forced, no one was coerced, and no one was intimidated or threatened during the process of these consensual activities. Talk
about the defense team. The judge chastised Mark Geragos, who's not exactly a member of the defense team, yesterday. He's sitting in an advisory role, and his daughter is one of the defense attorneys. Talk about that.
Yeah, Mark Geragos, a very good friend of mine, high-profile criminal defense attorney, has been on some of the highest-profile criminal cases we've seen over the last decade, was on a podcast that he does with Harvey Levine of TMZ and made some comments about Sean Combs, says he knows him, says he knows what his temper is. But it's not clear if Mark is going to come on in an official capacity. There hasn't been any paperwork or documents filed with the court indicating that he's coming on board as co-counsel. He clearly, though, has been in the courtroom giving advice to the lawyers who are representing Sean Diddy Combs. There's some speculation that he will file documents to be co-counsel for the case, but as of yet, he's just playing an advisory role, although, according to prosecution, he is violating court rules by making these out-of-court comments about this case.
But Areva, quickly, you mentioned consenting adults, but how does that infamous video where he's beating his girlfriend in front of the elevator, how does that play a part in this? And you may also have testimony that is similar to that video.
Well, Larry, I mentioned consenting adults because that's what the defense
I
is
understand.
playing.
Sure.
But we should state that very clearly the prosecution has a very different perspective on what happened, and we're going to see witnesses that come into this courtroom and testify on behalf of the prosecution that they were coerced, that they were intimidated, that they were threatened, and that this was not a matter of consent, but that this is a criminal act that we are witnessing. In that video that you just mentioned is going to be explosive. Although the defense says it's been doctored, we saw with our very own eyes very horrific incidents in that video, and I think it's going to be very difficult for jurors to believe that there was anything consensual about Cassie Ventura being chased and beaten in that hotel room, or in that hotel lobby, I should say.
Areva Martin, legal analyst, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.